Hello and welcome to tonight's lecture arranged by the Center for Asian and Middle Eastern Studies. I'm your host, Naeem Mahmood. Tonight we are to have the second lecture of the series, East Asia and Islam, Past, Present, Past and Future. The aim of the series is to provide an overview of the history and contemporary issues of Islamic thought and culture in East Asia in the context of its cultural background. East Asia is a region with the oldest Islamic traditions and the most recent dynamics. While China retains more than 1,000 years of Islamic tradition, Japan has less than 150 years of history of interaction with Muslims. In the history of Islamic civilization, the Muslim communities in East Asia have often been marginalized. However, the history and contemporary challenges of East Asian Muslims share many similarities with Muslims in other regions. How should contemporary Muslims understand East Asian Islamic traditions and culture? This lecture series will introduce the potential for the creation of East Asian Islamic thought and culture, and the Chinese Islamic tradition as a pioneer in this field. The title of tonight's lecture is it possible to create an Islamic culture in Japan? Courtesy, purity, and simplicity. The lecturer is Dr. Naoki Yamamoto. Dr. Naoki is currently an assistant professor at the Graduate School of Turkic Studies, Marmara University, Turkey. He completed his PhD at the Graduate School of Asia and African Studies, Kyoto University, Japan. He specializes in Ottoman Tasawwuf and traditional Japanese culture. His publications include a Japanese tradition of Sulami's Kitab al-Futwa and Introduction to Tasawwuf, a comparison with shonen manga. So that is a short intro of tonight's lecture. Now lecture is next. The lecture will continue for around 30 to 45 minutes. And the lecture will be followed by comments and Q&A section, which will last around 30 to 45 minutes as well. We observe few rules. We ask our audience to keep the mobile and mic and mobile mute until told otherwise. We encourage questions and discussions maintaining professional approach. We also encourage attendees to take notes on the lecture for the comments and Q&A section. So without further ado, I would like to ask Dr. Naoki to deliver his lecture. Naoki, over to you, and let me stop sharing my screen so that you can share your one as well.
Okay, shall I share my screen?
Yeah.
Oh, I think, can you make me co-host?
Yeah, that's fine, don't worry. Could you share your slides, please?
Okay. Which one? Okay.
And also, could you make it full screen?
Now, can you see my screen?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for giving me such a good, wonderful opportunity. So last week, I have introduced some of the Japanese Muslim intellectuals who are currently active in serving the Muslim community, and not only Muslim community, but also Japanese society today. And this week, my topic would be the possibility or the potential of the creating a Japanese Islamic culture, a Japanese Islamic culture. And the reason why I'm this is one of my recent projects lasting for the last 2 or 3 years actually, into thinking about the creating Islamic culture or unique Islamic culture in Japan. And the reason why I am thinking about the importance of the creative culture is because I believe Islamic civilization itself has like developed through cultural creativity and also the openness to the other cultures. It means like, we cannot say that, there is like Islamic values or like settled in one places, like without any like a cultural activities or like or the cultural representation. Like there is no such things as like, for example, if you can take like online courses of the Islamic sciences or something, and if you can download the content, then you can create like Muslim communities there. Like there should, like if you look up the history of Islamic civilization, there will always be like this cultural creativity. And another very strong point about this strong suits about this culture is the culture is not only about the elite, but it's also about the ordinary people like me. Like it also help us to nurtures our like identity, like essential identity, but also this the culture is also like a method of like translation. Translation means like for example, like in Japan, now we have two biggest and oldest mosque. One is Kobe Masjid, and another one is like Tokyo Jami. And the Kobe Masjid was built by the like South Indian Muslim immigrants during the 20th century. And if you look at the architecture of the Kobe Masjid, you can see that the like flavor of the South Asian Islamic culture, and this is how. And if you look at the Tokyo Jami, Tokyo Jami is also a good example. Like you can see like a small Sulaimaniya Jami in the middle of the Tokyo, and actually this is quite inspirational for not only like Japanese Muslim living there, but also for the masses, the Japanese in general, because this is how you see like this is how the Japanese can get like a new perspective. Even just seeing the architecture, which is like the Islamic civilization. So I understand this is kind of like a method of translation. It means like how like importing the new culture to our community, and they give us the opportunity to contemplate, about the essence of our the culture itself. And in the third level, like, but through this like a cultural interaction, I think in the near future, like a Japanese Muslim or even like Japanese artists who got inspired by Islamic art can create their own way to articulate the Islamic values or articulate the Japanese values with like Islamic like aesthetics. So so I think for the next 100 years or 200 years, and I think this would be like homework for like especially for Japanese Muslims to think, what is the essence of what is the essence of Islamic culture, and also what is the essence of Japanese culture, and is there a way to integrate those two, and show like a new way to or articulate our own like identity. And regarding these issues, actually there is a really famous article written by the Sheikh Omar Farooq Abdullah. The name of the article is Islam and the Cultural Imperative. And I would like to quote his introduction of these articles. And he talks about how the like a cultural like creativity of the Islamic civilization. He said that in history, Islam shows itself to be like culturally friendly, and in that regard has been linking to the crystal clear level. And its waters, Islam, are pure, sweet, and life-giving, but having no color of their own reflect the bedrock over which they flow. So in China, Islam looked Chinese, and in Mali, it looked African. Sustained cultural relevance to distinct people, diverse places, and different times underlie Islam's long success of the global civilization. So, I think as far as I understand, I think the Sheikh Omar Farooq Abdullah, what he meant is that the Tawheed is the water, and so this is just about like pure water, like pure clear water, which reflects the essence of the indigenous culture in every region in the world. And I think, as I said, I think they one good example like is the architecture. Example, like in the left side, this is the Chinese. What is one of the oldest like Chinese masjid. It was built the either 7th or 8th century, And I think it's quite interesting too. Like this is, it says that this masjid was built 7th or 8th century. It means this could be one of the oldest masjid in the history of Islamic civilization. And yet now it looks Chinese. Like, and the center of, the picture is, I think everyone, it's the Süleymaniye Jami in Istanbul. And it has like a Turkish flavor. And the right side, this one is also one of the, oldest like traditional masjid in Indonesia. And this also use like in Indonesian flavor. And in the case of the architecture, architecture this is not just like how can I say the appearances. Like it has also their own philosophy to articulate Islamic values. For example, like in Chinese masjid or Indonesian masjid, like usually those masjid have the like 3-layer of the roof. Remember the Indonesian Muslim, they believe that this 3-layer, the 3 roofs, is actually representing the 3 levels of Islam, like Iman and Islam and Ihsan. So whenever you go to like Indonesian like type masjid or Chinese type masjid, you can remember, the message of Islam. The first you will acquire the Iman, and then you will then you will push yourself to the practice as a level of Islam. And then, and also you will cultivate yourself to reach, the maqam of the ihsan. So in this way, like, this bedrock, indigenous culture is actually, their own language, their own like method, to explain that how they believe and also practice, the Islamic values. So in the case of Japan, unfortunately, there are so few like Japanese Muslim artists like who are working on like creating Japanese Islamic culture, because basically, we are like super minority in Japan, and our community is so young. But there are some like interesting like figures who are working on it, and one of them is the Sheikh Fuad Honda. He is the Japanese Muslim artist who studied under the Turkish calligrapher named Sheikh Hassan Chalabi. He is one of the most like famous calligrapher in the Islamic world. And his style is the so usually he used either like a natural, for example, like a forest or the wave to the oceans or like a desert, and then he will put like Arabic letters like over it. So in this way, that he tried to express the like manifestation of of the divine word, Allah's like the words of creation, the over like a world of creatures, like a world of like a makhlukat. So he in this way he tried to express that every entity in this world is actually like a manifestation of the the Allah's like divine word. And actually, after the presentation, I would like to ask, but I also feel as a Japanese, I also feel that the way he used the color is also like a Japanese. And there are some like similar like Japanese traditional arts we call Nihonga, and I think the way he used how can I say, like not that strong, but like gentle and sensitive color. It's actually, I feel that that he's trying to reflect some like a Japanese like essence of the aesthetics. And also this is complete another dimension, but in Japan there's a really famous like a rapper called Tsuigi Assalam, and he's actually the one of the pioneer of the Japanese like rap culture, like in the I think like 90s. So the other time. At the time, in Japan, like rap is kind of like imported like a culture from America. But Tsuigi Assalam, he is also the Muslim convert. But he's the one who tried to say push like a Japanese like rapper to make a rap in like a Japanese language. He's trying to like using our like vernacular language. And another interesting level is, since he's a Muslim convert, for example, this is the this is his first album, and this name of his first album is called Khidr. And and he tried to like use kind of like messages or the fables, like stories, which is told in Quran and Hadith, and try to convey this message in like a Japanese like a rap music. But unfortunately, in the Japanese rap scene, like he is almost the only one who tried to express those like Japanese like Islamic like values in like Japanese music. But yet, I think he can be classified as one of the like a cool example of who are trying to create like the Japanese like Islamic culture. Another one is like this is actually the one of the last this is recent phenomenon. I think the last 10 years. I think I think the last one is, I think it is the company of Indonesia. I think the Indonesian like sisters and brothers, like they are trying to create so-called like a kimono like hijab fashion, like a kimono hijab fashion. I think the right one, she is the Indonesian Japanese as well. Like so they are trying to and what the great thing is that now it's they are trying to create like a so-called like Islamic traditional Japanese like fashion, but if you travel to Japan, like you might notice that nobody wears kimono anymore, like especially like ordinary Japanese. They only wear kimono in only like for like special occasions, like graduation ceremonies or like festival, like summer festivals or the New Year like festivals and such. But and some of the Japanese, actually even including myself, when I was a child, I was a little bit I would say, I wouldn't say ashamed of, but I was a little bit shy on like wearing Japanese traditional clothes because now the Western clothes are so very dominant in Japanese society, and if I wear like Japanese traditional clothes, like I stand out. But those Muslims who are trying to create this kimono hijab fashion, they are saying that actually this Islamic philosophy of covering the body is actually can coexist with Japanese traditional aesthetics like a kimono. Like even this, for example, the female kimono, it covers like a body shape, like it looks like a body shape, but actually not. You wear like multiples of clothing in it, so actually you won't show the body line. And also, in the formal occasion, you will also wear the jacket over it. So even now me like in Istanbul, when I'm trying to introduce like this Japanese kimono fashion, I'm saying that this is like this is like a Japanese aesthetic of the tasattur. In Turkish, like a tesettür, it means like the beauty of like a covering, the body. And today, I would. So, and I also got inspiration from this new kimono hijab like a project, and before becoming Muslim, I even don't take much attention to my own culture. But when I encounter with many Muslim, who travel to Japan or who are studying in Japan, the many people are saying that there are so many similarities between like Islamic culture and the traditional Japanese culture. And after those conversations, I have also started to study my own culture again. And I also came to the conclusion that actually there is some similarity, but what is missing in both like Japanese community and also Muslim communities is that we haven't built like a connection between those two cultures in our brain. So personally, I call this like a semantic like reconstructions or like a revival. It means like what we can do is just reinterpret the vocabulary developed in Japanese culture, not only vocabulary or or the culture itself, especially the culture of like cultivation. We call shugyo. It means like spiritual training from an Islamic worldview, and through this, actually, we can came into like next level, like expressing Islamic ideals through like indigenous, like Japanese, like a cultural practice. And some of the people who might get I feel that, it can be risky because like a Japanese, for example, the traditionally like a religion in Japanese, like a Shintoism or the Buddhism or the other culture. So it means like, we might open like risk of like, having something like non-Islamic, like elements, to like a Muslim community. And I have a clear answer for it. Like, yes, there is some kind of risk. That's why I'm saying that, we must try to analyze and try to interpret the Japanese like a culture like carefully and try to extract the essence of of their values, and we can integrate with the Islamic like ideals. But those and I have encountered like similar criticism, for example, like when I give a lecture in Istanbul as well. For example, now I'm wearing kimono even in this presentation. Well, and this is like a traditional clothes. And some of the people criticize me that I'm wearing like so-called like kafir clothes. Like I'm wearing like he didn't use the word like non-Muslim. He said like kafir clothes. He said you're wearing kafir clothes, and if you wear the kafir clothes, then I can go back to like a kafir life again, like without knowing it. But one thing I want to make clear: there is no such thing as kafir clothes. And if there's such thing as kafir clothes, I think t-shirt and jeans or kind of like the modern Western clothes are more like a kafir clothes. Even though I don't agree that there is some such thing as kafir clothes. The important thing is that there is like Islamic codes and Islamic ethics, and as long as we follow those ethics and codes, which is taught in the Quran and Hadith, those clothes will be like a clothes which is appropriate for Islamic ethics. So in this sense, there is no like Islamic clothes as well. There is just a clothes or the fashion, which is appropriate for Islamic life or inappropriate for Islamic life. And the culture is also the same. Like if you look at the history of like a Turkish Islamic culture or maybe South Asian Islamic culture or Indonesian Islamic culture, there is no such thing as Islamic culture which had been Islam for the very beginning of their own history. It means like there is the time of the conversion in the Turkish Muslim community and also South Asian Muslim community and even the Arab Muslim community as well. In the time of the Prophet Muhammad, because the Sahaba is also like also the converts. So it means like they also transform their own culture into like Islamic and Arab culture. And also same goes with like a South Asian Islamic culture as well. Like they were also following the non-Islamic culture before becoming Muslim. But during this process of Islamization, they reinterpret or they took the essence of this, for example, like South Asian like philosophy, and they put the Islamic flavor and they make it like the South Asian Islamic culture. And also the same goes with the Turkish culture, and it's actually everywhere the same. And what I want to say is that Japanese Muslim community also need the same process, like similar process, like digesting like Islamic values in their own way. That's why I keep emphasizing like تحدث الناس على قدر عقولهم. This is the hadith. تحدث الناس على قدر عقولهم. It means that talk to the people according to their own level, like a reason. But this is not only about reason. Like this, it means I think the hikmah of this hadith is respect, the pacing of each individual or each community, and in Japan is also the same. Like becoming Muslim is not just like taking like Arab Islamic cultures or South Asian Islamic culture or Indonesian Islamic culture. It's like without like blindly. It means like those cultures also beautiful, but for the future. For the next generation, they also need to use their own creativity, to express their own mind. And for this process, I think, especially for the project of this semantic reconstruction, or like reconstructing like semantic, new, like an Islamic paradigm for the Japanese Muslim community, I think one of the most important keyword of this project could be like the Dao. And in Japanese, we call Do. Like, I don't know someone who heard like a Kendo or Judo or like or like a Kado in a flower. This, whenever we say Do in Japanese, usually it means like a Dao. Dao means, and Dao itself means way, like path. But Dao is also like has like a multiplex meaning. So first, ultimately, this Dao means like hakika, like reality, like a divine reality, which is given by like kind of like a supernatural being. And the second, it means like a path or the way. But this is not just like an ordinary path. This is like a spiritual path which guide us to this reality, the reality. And the third is this is not only about this Dao is also mean like a practice, like or training, which you conduct to reach like a divine like a reality. So, and Chinese Muslim intellectual, they interpret this Dao into like a Hakika and Tariqa, and also the Sharia. So, like I will try to explain in detail the next. And when it comes to practice, without like you can translate this Dao into like suluk, sadaka, because in Arabic sadaka means like go somewhere, and we have and the Dao has exactly like the same meaning. Like when I try to express it in English, sometimes I feel sometimes I struggle to explain. It's like a how can I say multiplex meaning of this Dao, but I think this is one of the beauty of the Arabic languages. So like what I believe is that this Arabic language, especially like Arabic vocabulary, which developed in the Islamic civilization, has a lot of like spiritual similarity with the East Asian vocabulary, and this is what in the before the modernization, this is what the Chinese Islamic scholar found out. So like they also like lots of like Chinese Islamic classic, to prove that actually the traditional East Asian vocabulary is the best way to articulate Islamic concept, and also the vice versa. Like if you know like an Arabic vocabulary, and I'm not saying Arabic language, this Arabic vocabulary, because those Arabic vocabulary, the Tariqa or the Suluk or the Sharia or the Hakika, those vocabulary also used in Persian and also Urdu and Bahasa Indonesia and Bahasa Melayu and also Turkish and African language as well. So if you know those languages, if those vocabulary could be like a best vocabulary to understand the East Asian spirituality as well. And if you look about East Asian traditional culture, the old traditional East Asian cultures are actually this practice of like Dao, like suluk, like spiritual practice. And today, I will show you some examples. Oh, by the way, I draw this in Chinese calligraphy because I have started practicing. So this means Dao in Chinese character. For example, one good example is the tea ceremony. So in English, we call tea ceremony. But in Japanese, we call sado. Sa means tea, and do, as I said, is Dao. Is Dao of tea, the path of tea, or like spiritual training of the tea. Like if you like, as long as we use like the word tea ceremony, it sounds like Donald Trump's like a tea party things, but actually this is like serious like spiritual like art. And when the philosophy of this tea ceremony is so-called wake se jaku, like wake se jaku. This is like Japanese way of pronunciation, like Chinese pronunciation have a different way. Now, what means harmony, and K means respect, and se means purity, and jaku means tranquility. Like, so this is what the main goal of this tea practicing the tea ceremony, like harmony and respect and purity and tranquility. Oh, and this is the picture I'm doing the Japanese tea ceremony workshop like in Istanbul, to introduce like traditional Japanese culture. And this is traditional Japanese kimono. Example like this the harmony. During the tea ceremony, this tea master and tea artist try to figure out in Arabic called like mizan, like the balance, balance between the macrocosmos and also the microcosmos, like alam kabir and alam saqir. And And most of the Japanese like Buddhist temples were built, based on this philosophy, like harmony between microcosmos and macrocosmos. But this this temple is in Kyoto. I forgot the name. Sorry. This is one of for me, in my opinion, I think this is one of those beautiful like Buddhist temple in Japan. Like those Buddhist monk, they polish, the tables like every day, like every morning, so it will shine. And this table reflects the beauty of the nature. And this is actually the symbol that if you purify the heart like so perfectly, then it will reflect the grace of the nature, which was given by a divine being. And this is, and this is not only for the Japanese tea ceremony. This is what Japanese aesthetic are trying to show. The harmony between the nature and the divine being and human being. We call it a tenjijin. Tenjijin. Ten means heaven, but here in the Kanada, it means divine being. Chi means earth, and this earth represents the nature, and jin means human being. Like the harmony between divine being and the nature and human being. And the next is during the tea ceremony, before using those tea utensils, like tea tools, the tea artists always purify those tea tools with the special like handkerchief. And when they fold the tea handkerchiefs, they use pointer finger. Like I got really surprised when I see this tea ceremony, like after becoming a Muslim, because we also use like point fingers when we finishing the salat, tashahhud. But I am also studying this tea ceremony with one master, which lives in my city, and I asked her, what is the meaning of this pointing finger when we point the tea handkerchief? And she said that this is a symbol of the oneness of the universe, like a oneness of the universe. And it means when you fold the handkerchief, it means like oneness will purify all. So this is the symbolic meaning of the tea ceremony, like oneness purifies everything. And this tea utensil is also like a symbol of the macrocosmos, Like, this is based on the 5-element philosophy of the East Asian civilization. The 5 elements means fire and the water, and the metal, and earth, and the wood. So this tea mixer and the teaspoon is the symbol of the earth, the symbol of the wood. And this teacup usually is a ceramic, so this is symbolized, the earth. And hot water represent, the water and the fire. And when we use the like a kettle, usually we use like a metal, so it's symbolized a metal. So it means like this tea utensil in the symbol of the major 5 elements. Like in Islam, we have like anasir arba, but in East Asian tradition, they have the anasir al khamsa, the 5 elements. So this students will face the tea when they face the tea utensil. It means like a microcosmos facing the macrocosmos, and microcosmos with the dua purifies the macrocosmos, and through purifying the macrocosmos, actually they are purifying themselves. Like through this training, they also purifying the microcosmos. So this is in the philosophy of tea ceremony, like philosophy of the purity. And next one, respect. I think one of the great things about East Asian traditional education is that they emphasize the mastership and also discipleship. And this is based on the East Asian philosophy called yin-yang theory, like yin-yang theory. I mean, the 2 opposing elements will complete each other to reach the one reality. In Arabic vocabulary, we must say like hakika, the reality of the hakika. And this tea ceremony itself is also like sincere art. It's sincere art which inherited through more than like 700 years in Japan, 700 years. And there is like chains of the masters. Like in Arabic, we can say like silsila. So there is a silsila of the tea ceremony. So you cannot study tea ceremony like without the master. And also like master cannot exist without the student. So that's why it's based on like yin yang theory. Like master and students are the two opposing elements to complete each other. And 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 when you reach to a certain level, the master will issue like a traditional certificate. This is the left one. Actually, I also have this one. Like you can see on the camera. This is my actual the certificate to prove that you finished like a certain level of the team. For example, this certificate saying that that I have the clear intention, pure intention. I hope I hope you already have this clear intention, but this certificate saying that these students have the pure intention and ambition to enter or start the practice of tea ceremony, and hereby this testify that he is now an official student of tea ceremony and such. And this certificate is offered by the Grand Master of the tea ceremony. So there is a hierarchy of the master in the tea ceremony, like in the organization. I say organization, it looks like a mafia organization, but it's not. It's just the art organization. So there is a Grand Master, and the second, and there is the like a second, like how you say, it's like a tarika. There is a mukaddam as well, like it's who are supporting the master, and also students. And there's another student as well. It's like a pyramid of miracles. And this, and this right one, this is the fan, which is used in tea ceremony. And can you see the signs, in each of the line? So this is the signs of the Grand Masters of the tea ceremony. So this is a sign of the founder of this tea ceremony, who lived in 600 years ago. And this is the sign of the second Grandmaster, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and go on. And now I forgot now he's like 20 something. I think last year the new Grandmaster is the chosen. He inherited the position of Grandmaster and go on. So and there is even like in this the school of the tea master. So it's like the Qadris or Naqshbandis or like a Shazali. So for example, now I am the students called Urasenki tea ceremony, and this is one of the biggest like tea ceremony like a group in Japan. But there is also another like two major group in Japan. We call Omote Senke and Musharankoji Senke, and each of the school has different like a method of the training. And the third one is like this tranquility, and also it's also about the like a simplicity. So in order to understand the reality of nature, in order to achieve the balance between the nature and the divine, and also human being, the one is required to achieve like a tranquility in your heart. In other words, we can say like mutma'inna, like nafs mutma'inna, the state of tranquility. And in the tea ceremony, it's called this philosophy of wabi-sabi will guide the students to reach to this level. And this wabi-sabi means like philosophy of simplicity, like simplicity, or we can say philosophy of being poorness. This poorness is like is exactly similar concept of the fakr, the state of fakr, like bluntly like a poorness. It means like you will reach to the level that actually the divine in Islamic way we can say that we will ultimately understand that Allah is only a ghani and we are just like a fakir, those who are in need of the divine grace. And in the tea ceremony, actually this is one of my favorite manga. We should talk about the history of the tea ceremony. And this guy, his name is called Sen Rikyu. He is the founder of the tea ceremony. And there was the discussion between the one samurai and this Sen Rikyu, founder of the tea ceremony, about what is the essence of the tea ceremony. And one samurai asked the Sen Rikyu that why he's using this black colored, like a tea ball, the black color. Because he said that, traditionally, this black color has like a negative meaning. It's a symbol of like a death or the symbol of like a weakness. But here, This is the answer of, the tea master. He said, I continue to find excess in every aspect of life, but if you remove all of the excess, black is the only color to remain. The black is the color of my ideals, and it represents my ideal life. It means the ideal of the tea ceremony. So what he expressing is actually the exactly similar concept, which is taught in like a tasawwuf literature. This is the philosophy of the takhliya. It means like removing all the excess in your heart and also in your life. Like removing all the bad habits or removing all the, some of the desire or destruction in life and try to find the pure one intention or try to gain this pure one intention to reach to the hakika. So this blackness is actually is symbol of the state of like a pure intention. And I also have the traditional tea bowl. This is my grandmother gave it to me, so this is my most important gift from the grandmother. So in this way, like I hope I will make a thing. I'm explaining myself clearly that actually there is lots of similar message exist in traditional Japanese aesthetics. So what we are required to do is just to find a connection, between those Islamic values and traditional like Japanese values. And also, another thing that I want to emphasize that that when I'm trying to introducing like so-called the beauty of Japanese culture, this is not like a manifestation of my like a nationalism or something, because the tea ceremony itself is also there is a special terminology used in tea ceremony. It's called mitate. Mitate means adapting new cultures or motifs into the tea ceremony. It means like the tea ceremony itself is also emphasize or like cherish the openness to the other cultures. Now with this picture, I use like Turkish cups and also like Turkish like carpet, for the tea ceremony. So this is my own way of mitate, like adapting or observing the other culture to try to create like a new way to conducting like a tea ceremony. And also in London, where was it? Oh, actually it was last June. I organized like a Japanese tea ceremony workshop in the Yunus Emre Institute, but this is not for introducing like Japanese ceremony, like to introduce like Yunus Emre poetry, because I find also there is similar message in the Yunus Emre. Yunus Emre is one of the famous, I think he's the most famous like Turkish poet who lived in medieval time in Turkish Anatolia. He's the one who introduced like Islamic values to the Turkish masses in the time. And I found also there is a similar philosophy in the Yunus Emre poetry. For example, harmony between like a divine, Allah, and also nature and human being, was a message about or the importance of humility, tawadu, mutawadu, or the message of tawakkul, tawakkul alanda, with like or the state of like nafs mutmainna, the state of tranquility. So it's like, I use this Japanese like a culture as a tool to like rediscover like a beauty of the Turkish like Islamic culture. I mean, project. And also like when I'm trying to introduce the Japanese tea ceremony workshop in Istanbul, some people ask that, not as rude as like a coffee close things, but some people are curious just like if this tea ceremony was tea ceremony is purely non-Islamic, or if this tea ceremony has kind of a message against like Islamic values or not. But in fact, there was the one Japanese businessman who came to Istanbul and lived in Istanbul a long time, I think a couple of 10 or 20 years, and he was actually one of the first Japanese Muslim in the history of Islam. And what is more interesting that he himself was also the tea and master of tea ceremony. He was also the tea master. And I found that he was also introducing tea ceremony to the Ottoman citizen at the time in the 20th century. So in a sense, this left side, the left picture is the time that when he was living in Istanbul, and the right side is, I think, when he get old, more than 70 years old or something. This is a picture as the tea ceremony masters. So in this point, actually, the Japanese tea ceremony is one of the first Japanese cultures which was introduced to the Muslim community. By this first Japanese Muslim, like Yamada Turajiro. So what I've been doing is I can even say that I revived this tradition. I revived this this tea ceremony as like a Japanese Islamic culture. And another traditional cultures like we might take a look at is the calligraphy. Even like Sheikh Fuad Honda, he's Arabic like a calligrapher, but calligraphy is also like serious art in East Asia as well. And left side, and this is actually my calligraphy. I wrote that I think 1 or 2 weeks ago. And this calligraphy means one heart, and this Chinese character was coined by the Chinese Islamic scholar who translate the Abdul Rahman Jami's Lawaif, the Persian literature, Persian Sufi like literature. So when he translate those Persian tasawwuf like terminologies into Chinese, like he borrowed some of the vocabularies of the Taoism or the Buddhism or the other like East Asian like philosophy and he put a new Islamic message on it. Like the Buddhists or the Taoists, they also use the same Chinese culture, Chinese character, which means one heart. But the Duzi, this Chinese Islamic philosopher, he put the Islamic meaning to this Chinese culture. It means one heart means like a state of like ikhlas or like state of the inner fakul, like that you removed all the distractions or desire from your heart, and you make your heart only facing towards Allah. And this linguistically, this is the translation from the Persian word called yekdet. It means one heart. But here, like as long as you have this is the East Asian Islamic education, that you can practice this calligraphy as like Islamic culture. And there's another interesting tradition of practicing this calligraphy in East Asia. It's called rinsho. Rin, here it means like in Arabic, it means like habra, like being together or staying like standing beside someone. It means like this rinsho is basically, it means this is the art of the imitating or the copying of the handwriting of the ancestors of the Chinese like a calligrapher. But there is a philosophy behind it. Is that this Chinese calligrapher says that to follow or imitate the handwriting is to follow the heart of the writer. It means like when you copy, when you practice rinsho, copying or imitating the handwriting of the ancestors, like this, that you see not, the notes, over it. Like you will analyze that how this writer wrote this the calligraphy, and for example, like this like strongness of of the handwriting or the speed or even the or even the historical like the backgrounds of the writer, and when I studied this philosophy of this rinsho, and actually this is what I exactly felt, when I took the lecture or the classes about the like science of the hadith or the importance of sunnah, because science of the hadith itself is also like why we're following sunnah, like why we're trying to move our bodies or try to cultivate our soul, to imitate the prophet, because this is how we imitate the intention of the ancestor, right? Not only the prophet, or even the ancestor. This is how we keep the silsila. So, and this rinsho is also have the similar philosophy. Like why I try to imitating? Because they want to imitate not only the handwriting itself, they want to imitate the heart of the writer. And if you know this vocabulary, that you can even use this classes to talk about the importance of the silsila or importance of sunnah. So what I see is that what is important is just the perspective that we see those traditions. And this is actually, as I said, this is not only the Japanese culture, but this is also Chinese Islamic culture. For example, this one, is also, I don't know, historically it is unknown that who wrote this treatise, but this treatise written for like Muslim children in China to practice like handwriting, calligraphy, and through practicing it, and they can also learn the basic concept of Islam. For example, here it said in begin. For example, in this paragraph, they also talking about the process of creation. For example, in the beginning days, there was like heaven and earth. I mean, heaven and earth was created by divine, and he said, and who is that divine? Who is the utmost? Ta'ala or Subhan, and he is the true Lord. Rabbul Haqiq, or it means like haq or hakika, and this means Rabb, and who is this true Lord? He is the one who is the only being in a true sense. And say, so this is how the Chinese, like in Muslims, are transmitting the Islamic values to the next generation. Like not just like reading books, or not just like going to the jamis, like this thing. By using the art of the calligraphy, they're also trying to convey those like spirituality. And another example of the practice of this Dao is the martial arts, like Budo, or we can say like Kung Fu. Bu means martial, and Do is, I said, Dao. So this is also another like practice of the Dao. And Kung Fu, and Kung Fu is also, usually Kung Fu is translated as like martial arts, but the meaning of the Kung Fu means like mujadala, like effort, or like fighting. But in this fighting, it means like fighting against your nafs. So this Kung Fu, so the correct translation of Kung Fu is like tarbiyah an-nafs, or like tadbir al-nafs, like controlling your nafs, or controlling yourself, or controlling your own ego. But since if you don't know these historical backgrounds, you can only see this, Kung Fu or the Budo as just the martial arts, or what's worse, like a sport. And and in Japan, actually, this is the program which we organized by the Tokyo Jami. Some of the Japanese Muslims, they are practicing this martial arts as for the art of the cultivation. For example, Fuga Kimura, he's one of my Muslim brother friends. He is also the practitioner of the martial arts. And there is also this Ahmad Naoki Maino. He's also famous like Japanese preacher, which I introduced last week as one of the leading the Japanese intellectual. He's not only like the intellectual, he's also practitioner of the Aikido, Aikido like martial arts. And I never met her, but it seems she is the practitioner of the Puncak Silat. Puncak Silat is the Indonesian like martial arts. So this seeing this martial arts, the method of the cultivation is not limited to the East Asian. This is also a tradition of Southeast Asia as well. Like the Japanese like sister who are practicing this more Puncak Silat. For example, there is a famous philosophy in Puncak Silat which is called Ilmu Padi. Ilmu Padi is mean wisdom of rice. Wisdom, and like ilm is from Arabic, so knowledge, and Padi means rice. But this wisdom, it doesn't mean like the art of like eating rice or cooking rice. This is just a metaphor. So can you see the shape of this rice? It curves, and the more the grains they harvest, the more curved they will be. So it means like the strong value humility. The stronger you get, like more humbler or more humble, that you will become. The tawadu that you will cherish. And we means like Japanese also have the the same proverb. We say minoru hodo koubyo tareru inaho kana. Inaho means paddy. Minoru hodo, it means the more grain you get. Koubyo tareru means like down your head. It means like humble you can get, like the rice. So idmu paddy. So the Indonesian Muslim, especially who practice the Puncak Silat, the reason why they're doing this martial arts is not becoming strong, they're physically strong, is that this is the method to acquire this ilmapadi, the reality of the tawado, the humility. And the Japanese martial arts also same, like in the if you not whether if you see any like Japanese mangas or for example, like one example is a Vagabond, is one of my favorite Japanese manga. If anyone who haven't read it, I recommend it. And for example, Demon Slayer, this is the recent Japanese manga, which I read. Like you see the Japanese manga, also saying like what they're trying to do is so some of the people they only see Japanese manga as like an action, like entertainment, just like the cool guy is like defeating the enemy and also like trying to use like a cool weapon and such. But it's not actually this Japanese manga itself is also how to is the method to convey the spirituality of the cultivation which are developed in Eastern art. Like so this is also the medium to try to preserve our traditional philosophy. And if you don't know, and if you know the philosophy in the Japanese manga, actually you can also even find a connection between like the Islamic spirituality and East Asian spirituality. But as a conclusion, like as I introduced today, there are so many Japanese traditional art which has like deep spiritual dimension, which has a potential to have like a rich dialogue between like Islamic civilization. But yet, most of the Japanese, they have started to forget this tradition. And to more extent, I think Japanese community in general, like they're losing where to go, in a sense. Because in the last week, I said that, there's more than like 20,000 people are committing suicide. And Japanese society is also feeling under a strong pressure. And especially young generation, they don't see any future or potential in the generation. But when I see the current situation in Japanese community, I remember, the word of the Sheikh Omar Farooq Abdullah. He said that, Tawheed is like life-giving, like a pure clear water. It's like life-giving. So it's like, I'm not saying that, so I'm not just encouraging like Muslim to study East Asian cultures. What I want them to do is that, they can give like a new creativity or new energy to the Japanese culture, like if they are really sincerely like study the East Asian culture, because as I said, the Tawheed is a life-giving like a water which nurtures like a soil of the indigenous culture. So now those like in the like tea ceremonies or like a sort of art or the art of flower or the calligraphy. Those everything now is like it's kind of like a scattered like a traces of the Japanese philosophy. Like sometimes I describe those Japanese culture as like a beautiful leaves over the trees. So we have the beautiful leaves, but we have lost the roots of this philosophy. But if like Islamic value become the new roots of those beautiful leaves, then not only we can create the Japanese Islamic culture, like maybe the Japanese Islamic value become like can revive the whole like Japanese culture and bring it to like the next level. So this is what the reason I'm trying to create like a Japanese Islamic culture. Like I'm like my intention is not just like how can I say, not just creating like superficial, like a coolish things, and try to introduce like other Muslim community to claim that I'm Japanese Muslim. No, like what I'm doing to do is that for both like Muslim and also like non-Muslim like Japanese, like I want them to rediscover the beauty of the East Asian East Asian tradition and try to revive it and also develop it in the next level by attaining the new energy from the Islamic civilization. Okay, thank you very much. This is all my presentation. Thank you for hearing.
Thank you, Naoki, for this brilliant and very informative presentation and the lecture. To be honest, I found some aspects of the presentation very intriguing, especially the tea ceremony and the calligraphy part as well. And not to mention the kung fu. To be honest, I learned kung fu during my school age, actually, but haven't heard much of its philosophy part that as you mentioned, because we took it as a sport generally, and that's how I guess all over the world it has been introduced like that way. And also the metaphor of rice is very interesting. That is one of the culture very common to all the Asia, most of the Asian countries, that rice is the main food over there. So the symbolism of bending of the rice grain is kind of new to me and very interesting. And of course, manga, now the young generation all over the Asia, they're kind of crazy about this manga culture of Japan. But you unveiled a different part of it, that it is not just like it's not just like a cartoon or a kind of characters. They have some spiritual element in that as well, to fight against the evil or kind of cultivating it, someone's own self. So thank you so much for that. I'm sure many of our audience have their questions, and I would love to hear from all of you. And of course, I guess Dr. Bari has his point as well, and Moti Rahman, who made some interesting comments in our last session. So please, everyone, go ahead. Feel free to raise your hands up and let us know whoever wants to start first. So it's an open session. So yes, Rubaya, do you want to go ahead first?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you very much, Dr. Naoki. It was a beautiful presentation, and as I heard your presentation, I found a lot of resonance with traditional East Asian culture, Islam, and everything. But one thing that I stood out very strongly for me was that we have this concept in Islam that likulli qawmin had, right? For every people there have been guides, right? And it seems to me almost that the traditional spiritual aspects that you're mentioning, and I was wondering that maybe a lot of this is a remnant of the common prophetic messages that like prophets throughout the ages have shared with the people. Because one thing that came as an example that came to my mind is that when I was reading certain histories of India, and there was an attempt from the Muslim Indian historiographers to sort of find a connection of the ancient Indian geography or culture, everything in the prophets of old. For example, I heard this idea that Hind was probably the name of like an old prophet, or a son of a prophet or something, Kabul, like these kind of ideas. I think the specific reference is probably like Qasim Farishta. So I was just wondering, like maybe when introducing this sort of like the cultural similarities, maybe this idea that this idea that we're all children of Adam, and then there has been guides and prophets throughout the ages, and this sort of resonates and remains in the cultures. Would you think that would be an interesting sort of observation, or that's something that can be shared?
Thank you very much for the question. Yes, I believe so. And this is exactly the way that Chinese Islamic scholar try to introduce the Islamic perspective to the non-Muslim Chinese masses. So these are terminology used by Chinese Islamic scholar, like Muslim scholar. He said that they said that Confucius is the sage of the East, and Prophet Muhammad is the sage of the West. And why they are following both Confucius and Prophet Muhammad? Because they said that the sage of the West will bring us the perfect form of practicing the Tao, practicing the way, Chinese philosophy. This is what they say. So it said that in China, there are the traces of the previous prophets, but they claim that those the whole picture of Tawhid message were gone. So that's why they said that they install they welcome the the message of the sage of the West, which is Prophet Muhammad, to try to reconstruct and try to make the philosophy, the East Asian philosophy, Dao, to the perfect form. And I think this and this is also what I found when I see the Japanese culture as well. Like as I said, I myself, as a Japanese, I really love Japanese traditional culture, or even the pop culture as well. But now the modern Japanese society, they lost the way to see the whole picture of the East Asian tradition because of the modernization in most cases. And even my experiences, I didn't take Japanese culture that seriously before becoming Muslim. I studied those Japanese culture again after becoming Muslim, and after encounter those cultural diversity of the Islamic civilization. Like, for example, when I traveled to Indonesia, I saw many intellectuals who were wearing traditional Malay clothes called batik. And when I traveled to Pakistan, I met the really great scholar who speak perfectly beautiful Arabic, and they're wearing and they are not wearing suits Western suits, but they are wearing shalwar kameez. And that was so shocking to me, because in Japan, the intellectual means someone who wearing the Western suits and who can make a presentation in English. But here in Islamic civilization, I think they in most of the region, in despite of the modernization, they are still preserving this whole picture of Tawhid, how they try to articulate those messages, how they practice, in the daily lives. And I think that's what Japanese need to learn. So this is why I'm trying to to introduce those Islamic, the culture in Islamic civilization to the Japanese audiences, and also the Japanese culture to the Muslim audiences.
Well, thank you very much. That's I think we really appreciate that. And I guess just one small comment question. Do you also see from what you said, do you see that the Western modern, postmodern culture as a problem in certain areas? You mentioned the suicides, and you mentioned, do you also see there are certain problematic aspects of it? You feel this to be as opposed to traditional culture? Do you think that this sort of evolves society in such a disconnected way towards yeah, I guess you kind of understand what I'm
yeah. I mean, it's really to demonizing the current modern Western culture, because it's already becoming a little bit cliche. But what I see the most the problem I see is not just the modern Western culture, but the Western centrism, and also a nationalism. This, in general, the centrism in the program. And what I see, and especially for the Japanese society, what they think is that the most of the Japanese, they think that their culture is already backwards, but since they are still living in the trace of the East Asian tradition, so they cannot become fully Westernized as well. So it means they are stuck between their tradition and also modern Western culture. So that's why I said that they are losing their way. They are losing their direction. So that's why what I believe what they need is that they try to diagnose their current situation by studying the other alternative from the outside of Japan. And what I believe is that the Islamic civilization could be the best for them to learn the other new perspective.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm sure our audience will come up with more questions because we still have a few more minutes to take. There's a question in the chat where one, I guess, Bowen, make a question is that how would he introduce Islam to a Japanese friend, and in doing so, he would like to minimize the gap between Islam and Japan. So how would somebody introduce Islam to a Japanese person?
Oh, I see. And so thank you for the question. So I am not like Dai, so I don't have like lots of experiences, but I remember it was like advice for like Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad. He mentioned it on the conferences that he said that if you want to do dawah, like avoid words as much as possible. Means like avoid trying to explain those things as much as possible in words, because as I said, Islam cannot be taught or even articulated only by words. The Islam is also like, for example, in the Quran, is they said the 3 levels of yaqeen, like ilm yaqeen and ayn yaqeen and haqq yaqeen. The first level is the knowledge, and then the witnessing, and the third is like this haqq yaqeen, reality of this certainty. It means like experiences, and it's really dangerous to believe that if we can explain those things, that it means like they can. It means that we can convince the people. It means that there is not like a universal like a logic to explain those Islamic values. Like Islam is universal, but how the people get convinced, it depends on the the cultural backgrounds. And in the case of East Asia, as I said, the most important keyword to understand Islam, the East Asian civilization, is Dao. And this Dao, in most cases, especially the culture of the cultivation of Dao. It means like a spiritual training. Because I mean, when it comes to East Asian, they also like metaphysical like discussions or philosophical like arguments, but they are not that into it. Like what they into it is that this is like training or the practical aspect of the religiosity. And so like in the Tokyo Jami, like they will also organize like Islamic martial arts, and they're also doing like a calligraphy. Like this cultural activity is that on the surface, like you may not believe that it will directly go to the Dao, but actually eventually it will cultivate the soil of the Dao. So this is actually what the power of the culture is. Because the English word, culture is also come from the cultivation. So actually it will cultivate the ground or the foundation for the Japanese audiences to accept those Islamic values. So what I want to say is that there is no like one best dawah to convince like people who in like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Like it may take 1 year, or it may take 10 years, or maybe 100 years, or maybe like 1,000 years. But the code establishing this cultural foundation is what I believe is the best way, for the like a non-Muslim society to get familiar with the Islamic values.
Excellent.
But when I keep saying Islamic culture and the word Islamic culture, but actually I found that there is a good comment in I think it was an Arabic comment in the chat, and he said that there is no such thing Islamic culture, and Arabic says فالثقافة لأي بلد كان وإن لم تخالف قواعد الشرع وهي ثقافة صحيحة وسليمة. And actually I also agree with that kind of idea too, like a kimono. There is no like a kafir clothes or like a Imani clothes or Islamic clothes. Actually, there is just like a culture which apply for the Islamic messages, or maybe inappropriate for Islamic messages. And so Japanese culture is also there is no, and this in this presentation, I use the word Islamic culture, but what I want to say is that there will be like a Japanese culture which can convey those Islamic spiritualities. And in this sense, actually there was a good comment, and it's also I got the inspiration from it. So I just want to say thank you very much for the call.
Yeah, excellent. I guess that he raised his hand as well. So please feel free to make a comment if you'd like to add a bit more. So Muti Rahman, you raised your hands a while ago. Would you like to add your thoughts, please? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Excellent, just like last time. Excellent presentation. Thank you,
Thank
brother.
you very much.
Yeah. Just two things. So I have just discovered, but in terms of Hakika, you have it there. In terms of Tariqa, you have it in the roots of Japanese culture. In terms of Silsila, you have everything there. But currently in the West, in the last 50, 60 years, the dominant philosophy is existentialism. Basically, people want to taste things for them. If they can, tasting is, as they say, seeing is believing. Now, in the Sufi traditions of past, the master, the two key words are hal and maqam, states and stations. Now, what the Sufis used to do is those who go into the Sufi practices will at least taste some of these ahwal, or the stations, and then eventually arrive at the maqam. So the first they will taste the states, and then they will arrive at the stations. Once people start tasting the spiritual sort of ahwal, then they cannot, logically, you cannot deny faith anymore, since you've tasted something, which, as you were referring to, Ain al-Yaqeen, the absolute certainty of knowledge. That is, now in this Japanese society, I don't know if there's enough masters to lead people there. So basically, it is about the only thing lacking from your presentation is ahwal and maqam.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we also have the similar concept like ahwal and maqam too. It's about the levels of the spirituality of the trainee, and this is, I think, is also could be the one of the important similarity between Islamic civilization and the Japanese culture, because I don't know anyone who watched the new series of the Star Wars, like from episode 7 and episode 8 and episode 9. Like, I'm also a big fan of Star Wars, but the Star Wars will also have this like East Asian philosophy. Like, there was a Jedi, the spiritual master, and the Padawan, the students and disciple study under the spiritual master, and there was also like process of digesting the hakika, and the disciple also learned they had spiritual state of the master. But in the new series Star Wars, I don't know why, but they just erased those any kind of spiritual aspect of the Star Wars you used to have. And the protagonist, which is the female protagonist, there is no reason, but she suddenly became the strongest Jedi in the history of this Star Wars without any masters and without any guidance. And I think this reflects the spiritual plague of the modern society, that disregarding or disrespecting the spiritual guide, and also the philosophy of this yin yang, like master and disciple will support each other. And in the Japanese manga animation, one thing I like is that Japanese entertainment still have this message. Like, if you watch like One Piece or Naruto's, or I don't know, this Demon Slayer or the Vagabond, there was always like a masters, and there was always like disciple, and there was always like a progress of the cultivation. So that's why what it says that it's really become off the topic, but what we should do is trying to find the connection. This is why I'm saying this semantic reconstructions. Like there was the similar linguistic background in East Asian civilization, but we have forgotten it. But we can revive, or we can remember those connection by installing the new perspective from Islamic civilization, or we can also learn from the neighbors, like in the Malay Islamic history of Malay Islam, history of the Indonesian Islam, and also the history of the Chinese Islam, which I will introduce for next week, inshallah.
I have a complimentary question regarding this. I hope it would not be not sound a bit difficult. So, how much, Naoki, how much difference and similarities you find between a Jedi master and a Sufi master?
Jedi master
and the Sufi master.
Oh, Jedi and Sufi.
Between these two, how much similarities and differences you find? I mean, just a hypothetical question, but I mean, are there any similarities that you find? I mean,
no. Oh, are you saying between Jedi master and Sufi master?
Yes, yes.
I mean, Jedi I mean, I'm a big fan of Star Wars, but I'm not that kind of detail. But I think you can find lots of similarity between the story of the Jedi and Sufi masters too, because I don't know. When I start talking about Star Wars, I became too like nerdy, like otaku things. But the Obi-Wan Kenobi is also the good example. Like, for example, from physical perspective, the Anakin Skywalker. I'm sorry for those who haven't watched the Star Wars, but Anakin Skywalker is much stronger than Obi-Wan Kenobi. But what makes him stronger than Anakin Skywalker? Because he knows how to control himself, and also he knows this. He knows how to control the psychology of the opponent, and he also have the guidance for. He also respect the guide of the master, which is different from Anakin Skywalker, who eventually turned into Darth Vader. Because in the last battle, I'm not talking about the spin-off series of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm talking about the canon, this episode 3. The reason why the Anakin Skywalker got defeated is about arrogance. And also his weakness of the heart. And please remember that what is the philosophy of, for example, Puncak Silat or the Japanese martial arts is they say that the martial arts is the method to achieve tawado, humility. And it says, so in a sense that you can see lots of like similar messages. And also the story of the Obi-Wan Kenobi is actually a story of repentance that he felt in Anakin Skywalker. That's why he tried to guide like Luke Skywalker as much as he can. And if you look about the traditional like Sufi literature, the first chapter of the Sufi literature, it starts with a tawbah, repentance. And also like if you see a lot of stories of Sufi, there was always a mutual relationship between the master and disciple. And of course, like it's dangerous that we're trying to see those like non-Muslim entertainment has like Islamic messages, because it says because non-Muslim product in the end is like a non-Muslim product. Like it's also same goes with Japanese manga animation too. Like in the end, that is also made by non-Muslim like Japanese artists. But what I mean encourage is like that, but also, there is a fact that there is no such thing like ideal Muslim society, especially like non-Muslim countries. So in Japan, in the end, there is no such thing like a Muslim village or the Muslim university, or even the big Muslim community. So you have to survive those kind of environment, and also you have to preserve the Muslim identity. Then you cannot just like stuck yourself in a home and just like enjoying trying to like downloading those so-called Islamic contents. You have to go to the society. And in a sense, what gonna be really important for them, including me, because I'm also Japanese Muslim who once lived in Japan, it's about acquiring this perspective, like trying to extract those messages which share the similarity between Islamic spirituality as much as possible, to try to keep your Muslim identity. So personally, I call this like a new way of the Khalwat Dar Anjuman. Khalwat Dar Anjuman is a seclusion from within the society. It means like Islamizing your perspective, or to keep these Islamic values in your perspective and try to see the world. But of course, the better thing is that we can reestablish like a Muslim community in a Muslim country in a proper way.
Excellent. I guess we can have another series on reinterpreting manga and the Star Wars series in the context of Islamic spirituality. I think we can look for something similar to that in coming times. So we have a hand raised here. Could you please mention your name and unmute yourself and please comment on.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I'm the one with the Arabic comment. I'll mix my comment between Arabic and English, because my English is I find English quite hard to speak to, because I'm so used to talking Arabic. Well, I have done a session like before a year here in Cairo about Islam is not being something we call Islamic culture, because when we address the Islamic culture, whether we are addressing the Islamic Sharia or the thing that we take from a certain culture and make it Islamic. Like when our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to Arab, he didn't change any culture of Arab about their living lifestyle and everything, unless it was something that was against the Islamic usul al-fiqh or the qawaid al-shar'. So I'll make it short. As long as something as long as a culture doesn't go against the Islamic usul qawaid al-shar', I don't know how to translate that. I think it's jurisprudence. I don't think there is a problem. There is a problem of some culture being as it is. يعني الثقافة هي كلها ثقافة بلد معين، ليست ثقافة إسلامية. أما الإسلام فهي تعطينا القواعد التي تحكمنا. ولو رأيت أنت تفهم العربية صحيح؟
Yeah. So
أنت تفهم العربية.
Yeah. So I completely agree with you in this sense.
Yeah. إذا رأيت مثلا إلى بلاد العرب هم بقوا كما كانوا، وإلى بلاد الهند هم يلبسون ملابس مختلفة عن العرب ويقولون هذه هي الإسلام. وأكلهم مختلف وطريقة احتفالهم مختلف عن العرب. وإذا ذهبت إلى المغرب مثلا، إلى بلاد المغرب, and they have different kind of clothes and everything, and they say this is Islamic culture. Actually, we're addressing their culture. When you're talking about our South Asian countries, we're talking about my culture, but we like to call them like Islamic culture because a certain Muslim people do that. I think إذا استطعنا أن نفرق بين هذا الثقافة والإسلام نستطيع أن نخلص من كثير من المشاكل التي نحن نضع عليها اسم الثقافة الإسلامية ونختلق المشاكل منها. شكرا.
Yeah, so I completely agree with you. So in this sense, like sometimes we are narrowing our perspective by using those terminologies, because if we look at the classical books on anything in Islamic civilization, there's no such things as like Islamization or even like Thaqafat Islami as
exactly,
or Islamizing perspective, because there's no Arabic sign like Islamizing. How can I say, like, I don't know.
Aslama.
Yeah, but there's no such usage in the classical languages. Like this is completely new concept. And as you said, like kulli baradin yujad thaqafat muayyan. And in Japan is also saying like that we what I believe is that there is some kind of a cultural practice which can articulate those Islamic values and and this is also what I understand from the Sheikh Omar Farooq Abdul's article. So here he was saying that he's saying Tawheed is like a clear word. It means like there is no Islamization or Islamize something.
Exactly.
Tawheed will give the energies or creativity to the culture, and the culture reflect the word and the Tawheed reflect this color of the indigenous cultures. And this is also what I want the Japanese people also want to know about too, because when they encounter so-called like Islamic culture, they always think that this Islamic culture means like Arab cultures or Malay cultures or Pakistani culture or Turkish culture. But it's not. Like they can also create their own like language or their own like a method to contemplate about Islam.
Yeah, and I was reading a book about the beard, written by Dr. Salah Abul Hajj. He's from Jordan, and in the beginning of the book, he was saying like when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came, he didn't come to spread the culture of Arab to the other worlds. He came to spread the Islam, and the culture stays the same. So I feel really happy that someone like you and someone like Dr. Salah Abul Hajj, because when I took this kind of idea, I thought it would be opposed. And when I have done the session in Cairo, it was opposed, like really bad. And some people thought I was saying something against Islam, but it wasn't. I was trying to implant something that was actually there in the Turath. I was trying to bring it back. So thank you so much for your lecture, and Jazakumullah khairan.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much for your comment. We've got Sariha made an interesting comment related to this tower thing, and also we've got a few more questions there. Shabazz has a interesting comment over there as well. He has been studying Japanese in the last 2 years, and particularly okay, right. So thank you for your comment over there. Now, there's Numan made a question over there. Is there any historical study to seek the root of Japanese culture with Islamic or Abrahamic religion? Is there any historical study to seek the root of Japanese culture with Islamic religion?
Like historically, this monotheistic concept was introduced to Islam through the missionary works of the Catholics in the 14th century, 15th century. But there is this is also one interesting experiences when I studied tea ceremony. Is that my teacher told me that this tea ceremony might be one of the traces that the Japanese will believe in so-called monotheistic God, because they're using one keyword of the tea ceremony is the oneness. And as I explained in the presentation, it means oneness purifies all. Like some of the historian says that this might be the influence of the Christianity, but we must not forget that Christianity is they also believe the monotheistic God, but the major creed of the Christianity is the Trinity. So, but here in the tea ceremony, there is no element of the Trinity. What we can find is the pure oneness. So actually, unfortunately, there not much work have been done on this kind of a historical root of Japanese culture. Especially related to Islamic religion. But it might be interesting. We can study the detail of it when we are digging, and we might find out some of the interesting fact for it. Inshallah, it can be the next project.
Right. Thank you, Naoki. With that, we would like to close the session tonight, because I'm sure there would be a lot more questions coming up in the next session as well. So we'll be able to figure out more on this topic in the coming session as well. So our next lecture is on next Saturday, 29 October, on the topic of East Asian Islamic civilization, Hand Kitab as a minority literature. So we thank Dr. Naoki for the lecture, and to you all as well for taking part and making valuable comments and contributions. We are very much looking forward to seeing you in the next lecture. Bye for now.
Thank you very much, Jazakallah.